Black people, I want to tell you something that may surprise you. It's this. Behind your back, most white people, I know there are exceptions, I know there are. I hear you. Most white people are not using the N-word behind your back. They're just not. Not at all. In fact, and I'm talking about traditional conservatives, traditional liberals, Trump supporters, the word's just never used. As a matter of fact, if you were to use that word around normal white people, again, I know there are exceptions, around normal white people, they would look at you like, what is wrong with you? They would be disgusted. They'd be confused. Like, why would you say that? You could lose friendships over it. Again, I know there are exceptions and there are people who do use it. But in my experience, after being around conservatives from the Midwest, white conservatives from the Midwest, being in New York City, around traditional liberals, nobody says it. Nobody uses it. As a matter of fact, no one really ever talks down about black people in general. It doesn't happen. Now, again, I know there are exceptions. I don't know what percentage of white people talk bad about black people or use the N-word. I'd say maybe, and this would be high in my opinion, but let's say it's 5%. It might be 5% of white people that are, talking terrible about black people and using the N-word behind black people's back. That might be high. In my experience, and I've lived a lot of places, I've been around a lot of people, I've been behind closed doors with conservatives, it just doesn't come up. They essentially split the world into good people and bad people. And it doesn't matter if you're black, Hispanic, white, Asian, you're either fucked up big time, right? As my grandfather used to say. That's how he talked about people who were like criminals and they're just fucked up big time, or a good person. Like, that's essentially the dichotomy people operate on behind closed doors. There are not people just throwing around the N-word. I never heard it. No, of course, kids rapping along to songs or something. I'm sure I did when I was younger. I can't remember, but I'm sure I rapped. I was a big Mobb Deep fan. But like, other than that, you don't hear it. You just don't. White people aren't behind closed doors using the word. The only exception I can think of in my life was when I was younger, somebody who was like 70, 80 years old might say the N-word. That's it. It was very rare, right? And even then, like, the younger people would look at them, like Gen X people would look at them like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why would you say that, right? So the idea that there's just this like ongoing racism behind closed doors, I haven't seen it, quite frankly. I just haven't. And I've talked to my other friends. I'm like, have you ever been in a group where they just throw the N-word around, right? And they're like, no. Why would we do that? Who doesn't make any sense? So I'm just here to report, that this isn't happening, at least not on the scale some people think it is. It's just not. It's not in our most normal white people's vocabulary. We don't want to say it. We don't want to, it's just not something we want to say. And hopefully that makes you feel better, because the reason this comes up, I was having a conversation with, somebody in my grad school, and they're like, oh, white people use the N-word all the time behind closed doors. I'm like, what? No, they don't. Right? They don't they don't use it. And I've been around some billies, man, some hillbillies and some rednecks. They just don't do it. They don't say it. And listen, and the same is true. Like, I lived in East Harlem and Harlem for a very long time. I have a lot of black and Hispanic friends. Now, they use the word, but there's not much racism there either. There's not a whole lot of racism anywhere, okay? There's more in certain communities and certain geographic locations, but I'm just telling you, behind closed doors, we're not using it. And if you do use it, you'll be looked down upon. That's the honest God truth. There are exceptions. I keep saying that. I know there are exceptions. There are groups that I'm sure use it, but generally speaking, most white people, they think they're going to treat you as an individual. That's how they're going to treat you. At least that's been my experience. And if you're a white person, like this, if you know this is the case, leave a comment to let people know this is the case. Behind closed doors, we're not being racist. We're not talking down about black people. Once more, just to reiterate, I know those people exist, but I think the vast, vast majority of white people in America are not doing that. Trump supporter, conservative, redneck, hillbilly, country boy, I just haven't seen it. Aligned with the fact that, like, 90% of Americans are okay with interracial marriage, right? So anyways, Americans are generally speaking decent people with exceptions.